Welcome to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. If you would like to support this channel, please hit the like button and consider subscribing if you enjoy the content. And now let's start with the first story. It's called Service Calls. This happened a number of years ago. I was working as a field service tech for a company in Canada. We had 3 major territories: Quebec, Ontario and British Columbia. I lived in Ontario, and since our management was in Quebec, they looked at anything outside Quebec as being the rest of Canada. So we had 2 on-call teams, French for Quebec and English for the rest. I had only been with this company for a year, and one Sunday morning I received a call from a rep in Vancouver telling me there was a service call in Toronto and I had to do it. I said, "But I'm not on call." He told me we always cover the East if a Western rep is on call that week. So I spent pretty much the entire day performing this call. On Monday I sent in my paperwork along with my 2-time overtime for Sunday. The next day they called me from the head office and told me that my overtime for Sunday was denied since I wasn't on call that week. So I asked them, if you are not going to pay me for my work, am I under any obligation to accept an after hours call when I am not on call? They told me no, I wasn't under any obligation. I asked the manager to send this policy in an email, and they did so. Cue my malicious compliance. It was only 2 months later when the rep from Vancouver called me again on a Saturday, telling me I once again had to do a service call. I simply told him, "Sorry, I won't accept the call, since they won't pay me if I do." He didn't believe me, so I forwarded him the email and said good luck with it. I went back to what I was doing and heard nothing until Monday morning when my manager angrily called me and demanded to know why I wouldn't pick up the call. He told me that the Vancouver rep had to fly to Toronto on business class since no economy seats were available. He had to get an expensive rental car and an expensive hotel room. He then demanded to know why I refused to take the call. The travel costs were over $5,000. I explained that the last time I had done this, the head office refused to pay me and I wasn't about to work for free. I also forwarded their email to him. That shut him up, and I later found out that the sales manager wanted me fired until they showed him the policy and they knew I would sue if they tried to fire me. It was a week later that a new on-call policy was issued. If we weren't on call but picked up an after-hours call, not only would we be paid for performing it, but we would also be paid a $200 bounty just for taking the call. They never did pay me for that Sunday call, but I managed to work it into my overtime with a bit more for my troubles. I lasted another year at that job, but there was always too much BS, so I found a better job and left. The next story is called Overtime Rules. Several years ago, I was working in a rural hospital in radiology. 8 of us would rotate through, including 1 week in 8 of the afternoon shifts from 1 PM to 9 PM. Basically, it was 7 days of turning up in the middle of the day at the busiest time and working by yourself for the last 4 hours. One day, after 3 afternoon shifts, I approached my boss, not for overtime, but time in lieu, as each shift I had worked back 20 minutes. He erupted and told me it should be my pleasure to do a short bit of unpaid overtime, and he would only pay overtime if it was 30 minutes or more. As punishment, I was given every second week of the afternoon shifts for 18 months. So I complied with this overtime rule quite well. Every night at 8:30, unless crucial, I would sit on any request forms till 9:05 and then x-ray the patients. I averaged about 40 minutes each night. This 280 minutes at the overtime rate was enough to pay my rent. To top it off, I would every now and again hold a couple of easy exams over and call the on-call night staff who would get a day's pay for 30 minutes of work. After 18 months, I get called into the office and the chief and assistant chief radiographer are there and a government auditor was there. They wanted to know why I had the highest overtime in the region. I explained that I have been placed on 18 months of 7-10 shifts of afternoon shifts, which wasn't equal in the workplace. And that the afternoon shift was really busy and I could do the cheaper option of overtime or spend a day's pay on call-in staff. The auditor just glared at my bosses. He apologized to me about the unfair work practices and I was asked to leave the room. The roster was returned to normal and my bosses received official warnings. From then on, every afternoon shift I would call the on-call staff at 9 PM. I cost them a heap of money and the boss had a go at me, but I just reminded him of the government auditor and he went quiet. The money I saved I spent on an overseas holiday. The third story is called No Per Diem. I worked for this company for over 20 years, all of it in a senior IT position. It's a manufacturing company. Our products are shown in a trade show twice a year. Due to us using lots of tech toys to demo the products, IT has to go to the show space days early to set up, fine-tune, etc. And after the customer part of the show is over, about 4 days of that, we have to stay behind and take it all apart, etc. A senior member of IT, me, has to go early each day to open up the space, turn on all the techie stuff, make coffee, and in general get everything ready for the sales team to come in for the 7 AM meetings. This also means staying in the space until everyone has left and shutting it all down and lock up. The trade show is within driving distance of my house, but due to having to be there at dawn to open up for sales to have meetings at 7 AM, I have to go up hours earlier than I normally would. Company policy was: if you have to travel outside of your normal territory and leave your house more than 1 hour before your normal time and arrive back home more than an hour after your normal time, then you are allowed a meal per diem. So for 20 years, twice a year, I've been turning in my mileage and daily per diem for meals for 7 or 8 days and getting reimbursed without a word being said. Until 2 years ago. 2 days after I turn in my expenses, I get a call. Sorry, but I have to deny all your meals because you didn't have an overnight stay. What? I've been doing this for 20 years and never had a problem. When did this change and why wasn't I told in advance? Sorry, just doing what the VP of HR told me. Okay. So I head over to HR and ask what's this about. Well, it should have been this way all along. Some managers were doing it, others not, so now it's the same for everyone. Shouldn't we have gotten a notice beforehand? Or a written addendum to the policy manual, since that is not what the policy says? Well, it's the policy now, she says, all angry and red-faced. It's been over 3 years now, and still not in the written policy that is being handed out to new hires. Our travel coordinator is not an employee, but a contractor that gets paid on commission, so spending more means more money for her. And she does not talk to HR, other than to get what the rules are. She also approves our expenses based on what the rules are. As long as we are within the rules, automatic approval, and I get the reimbursement by direct deposit within a few days. A month later, I have to visit a customer's location, a 2-hour drive from my house. I have about 4 hours of work to do. I used to do all this in a single day easy, but not anymore. I let the travel agent know what customer I'm going to, and I will need a room for 2 nights. A day to travel there, a second day to work, and the third day to travel home. So I travel there, do the work, then drive home. I do not stay overnight, don't even check into the room. But since I didn't cancel, I get charged anyway. Instead of just mileage and 1 day per diem, it's now mileage, 3 days per diem, and 2 hotel nights. What would have cost the company about $100 now costs over $400. And the next trade show, you guessed it, a hotel room for 7 nights, of which I actually stayed 2 nights, and only then because I went out with a customer for dinner and a few beers. The rest of the time I went home. I do this for all my travel now, especially if it's within driving distance of home. My travel expenses have gone up by 3 or 4 times what they used to be, and nobody noticed. The last story is called Exactly. A long time ago, I worked in an office where I managed several things, including vendor relations for our repairs. I was about 21 at the time. About a year in, the company transfers this middle manager, we'll call him Chad, roughly 55, from a completely different department to now lead mine. He has no idea how or why we do what we do, but according to him it was his way or the highway. Needless to say, no one liked him. And he led to 80% of the department leaving within 6 months. At some point, he decides our vendor scorecard should change to a new format and use a new scoring system he came up with. I push back, but he insists that I copy his spreadsheet scorecard exactly and use it as a template to create new files for each vendor. He'd filled out his own template with vendor A's information. So I merely saved the file as new under vendor B to Z, but kept vendor A's filled in information. Fast forward about a week, and we have a recurring meeting with vendor B to review performance and the new scorecard. It's me, Chad, the vendor representative, and my manager's boss, Fred. Chad starts explaining his new format and scoring system, and passes out copies of the scorecard. I think you gave me the wrong scorecard. This isn't our company. Yes, it's correct, I selected your file. Fred, looking at the clearly incorrect information, I apologize vendor for wasting your time today, we'll be investigating and will follow up. The vendor leaves and I'm excused from the room. I don't know what exactly was said, but Chad was less of a jerk for a while. And with that, we end today's video. Let me know what you think about the stories. On a scale of 1 to 10, how would you rate the stories and today's video? I hope you enjoyed the video. If you like what I do and want to support me,